All right, Safehouse, I got a question for you. Is your money your side piece? We're going to talk about this because some of us are out here doing a little bit of cheating with our money. We'll be right back. Hey there, Safehouse.
What's up, Safehouse? We back.
We're talking about a rough one this week.
Oh, my Lord.
We're going to be reading some mail this week. We're going to be into some folks' business,
help
right?
me.
You know, we're going to dig into this topic here because I have a feeling that we all a little guilty of a little bit of financial infidelity.
Oh,
yeah, it kind of stings.
nobody likes to say that, when you think about that word infidelity, because we normally only think about it, like I said, if a person is like cheating on their spouse emotionally or, like physically, like they're actually having an affair, but we don't really talk about it in terms of our money. And like, to your point, we're probably more guilty of it than we realize.
Well, let's think about the word fidelity, right? It comes from the Latin word fidelis, which means true, right? So, are we true with our money?
Yeah.
Are we true, right? Even when it comes to our relationship, we talk about fidelity. Are we true to our relationships, right?
Right.
And so I think we can all, here's one of these ones where I think we can all put a chip into the guilty bucket.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
In terms of our ability to be completely infidelity or infidelity fidelity with our money. They're not
Yeah. Right. Right. I like what you're saying. Like be infidelity with our money. Be honest.
Be honest with it. Yeah.
With our money, because that's the thing that's important, and I like that you keep saying our money because it's our money.
Yeah.
And so that's why this topic is so important, because regardless of whether you have separate bank accounts or whatever, when you're married, it's our money.
Yeah. Well, fidelity, it's when we think about it, when we're being, an infidel, when we're out there being untrue.
That is true.
We think about it as my money.
Right.
Much just like when we're, once again, we look at the physical situations. When people are cheating, it's their body, it's their situation, it's their frustration, it's their rationale as to why they should be exempted from the rule of truth in marriage, right? And so because money is not such it's funny, it's a hot button topic, but we minimize how hot it is. Therefore, we are more casual about making loose decisions about the fidelity of our money.
That's true. I mean, listen, I'm over here shaking my head. Like,
All right, y'all. So we're about to get into this. So like, share, and subscribe to Safe in the House. Ring the bell to get notified when we publish content. Let's get ready to get into this topic.
Yeah.
And, this is going to end our third season on Safehouse. So we've come a long way.
It's a rough way to end the season.
Rough way to end it, right? But we need to talk about these things,
yes,
right?
That is true.
And even though this has been a hard series in terms, of intimacy, it's been the most enlightening.
That's what I was going to say, too. I felt like it's been the most eye-opening.
Yeah, and in terms of the feedback we've gotten, I think people have been blessed.
Absolutely.
By the discussion. Yeah. So, even though this ends the season and sort of ends the series, it doesn't mean that we're going to stop talking about intimacy and fidelity and finance and all those things. Finance is a large reason around people getting separated, or why when people get together, they don't get together right. And so we're going to keep a laser focus on that, even though this may be the end of a digital series.
Yeah.
Right? So how do we kick this off, babe?
So what's the definition of financial infidelity? So when we think about financial infidelity, it's when one partner is hiding or lying about money-related issues.
Well, I'm not hiding a line. I just ain't saying nothing.
Right. Well, that's the same thing. That's what we call omission, And so what I like about that definition is that there are some times where we purposefully hide, or we lie about what we're doing with our money versus it being an omission.
Right.
It's like, oh, I just didn't tell you about it. But that's still a space of infidelity.
I'd even go deeper. There's intentional omission, right? It's
Right.
like I'm not going to say nothing, and as long as she don't ask, it don't come up, right? There's intent. That's intentional omission,
Yeah.
and then there's unintentional omission. Like we'll be in a situation and there's a need for a solution, right? We'll be
Right.
and there's a money solution
Yeah.
involved, and I think, okay, well, I've got X dollars in my account. Let me be a help to this situation. It's just in time situation, and then I may not recall to tell you about that, right? So that's an unintentional omission, right?
That's true.
So it's different types of omission.
Yeah. So I know you're probably wondering, like, okay, what does that look like? So for some people, and this has happened. I mean, I've talked to couples. They've opened up secret bank accounts and credit cards. They hide their debts or their loans.
Yeah.
They put cash away.
They tuck it away somewhere.
Right.
Yeah.
They, under the mattress
In the sock
or
drawer.
something.
Right.
And this one can be a little tricky. Like some addictions.
Yeah.
Some people have gambling addictions. Some people have drug addictions. Some people have shopping addictions. We laugh about this all the time, on Facebook, where you see the wife, or it could be the husband too, every day they're ordering something from Amazon.
Oh, yeah.
And they're hiding it. They're like, oh my God, don't ring the doorbell
Right.
or bring it to the back because we got a Ring camera on the front. Because your spouse is like, how many times are you going to order from Amazon?
Right.
And so at some point you just start hiding it.
Right.
That's what it looks like in marriage and in a relationship.
I'm part of various groups, enthusiast groups that have various enthusiast interests, right? That I won't mention here, but often in the group, the discussion is how do we deceive our wives about these purchases, right? It's like you bringing home another beep, it's like, how can you buy another? You already got 10 beeps.
Exactly.
You already got 10 of those. Why do you need another one?
Right.
It's like, I just need another one. It just came out or something you want. And at some point it does become obsessive, but it's funny outside of, and it's a joke all over the internet, right? People in this community often joke about how do we get this passed?
Exactly.
How do I pay for this without it showing up in the account? How do I get it to the house? How do I get it into my safe without her knowing?
Right. Exactly.
And there's whole tactics around that.
It's called deception.
Deception.
It's called infidelity. Let's just call it what it is.
Yeah.
So, like I said, it's probably very few people who will watch this episode and be like, oh, well, that's not me.
Yeah.
Because like you said, at some point, we've all done it. Like I said, whether we're doing it for ourselves or whether we're doing it for the kids or somebody in our family, or whatever, we've all practiced being not truthful about how we're dispensing our money.
Yeah, that's true.
That's for lack of a better way to say it.
That's true, right? And, I've tried to avoid, you all see these guitars hanging up behind me. I've tried to avoid like another magical guitar appearing on the wall, right? But there was one point, there was only one guitar up there.
There was.
Right? And my wife at one day saw two. Where did guitar number 2 come from? Right. It just magically appeared. And of course, we always had them stories. Well, I used a little extra here, there. I traded some this, that, and the other, and blah. No, that stuff didn't add up to nothing. That stuff played for like 20 cents on a $5,000 bill.
That's when that secret bonus money came in.
Either
and
secret bonus or like in our case, what we do is run up our individual credit cards.
Exactly.
And then now we shackled with this debt that we got to pay off some point, or we got to come back and confess it. Like, you know what, I done messed up.
No, that's real talk. And so, like you said, it's like you said, we find a way to do it because we always think like, oh, okay, I'll be able to pay it off before the person finds out. And then something else happens. And then before you know it, like you said, it's like counting your chickens before they hatch. And so now you're in this space where, like you said, well, now you have to come clean about it.
Now, I don't know if this is sort of in what you have laid out, but another place of financial infidelity is taking out loans that your spouse may not know about or your partner may not know about. And unfortunately, the loan industry, which is very predatory, especially like payday loan places, and they charge ungodly amounts of interest
Hmm.
on that money. And unfortunately, when they come to collect, they're coming to collect from y'all. They're not coming to collect from just you, right?
Right. And also, to your point, when you're taking out those types of loans, they don't ask you about your spouse.
No, they don't.
Some things. So, like I said, when we got our timeshare, you can't do a timeshare
Yeah.
without your spouse.
Right.
Can't do it. Now, you can buy real estate without your spouse.
Yeah.
You can buy a house. Andre can buy a house without me. He doesn't necessarily need me to be there to do that. He can do that.
I think early in our marriage, I think we could almost file bankruptcy without your spouse. But
I seriously considered it. Andre was like, "What the?" I was like, "Oh, okay, that's not an option."
What?
Right.
Where did that come
Right.
from? It's like,
I was trying to erase my debt so I wouldn't have to confess it. That's what that was about.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, but see, what happens is the genesis of this infidelity a lot of times is either we can't control our lusts, our desires,
Right.
or we have something highly embarrassing
Yeah.
that we want to try to conceal or make go away,
Yeah.
right? Just I don't want this to hinder us. And sometimes the intentions can be pure, but it still leads to a situation where we're not being truthful with our forever person,
Yeah. So as I was thinking about this episode today, when I was on the Bible app, today's verse of the day was Philippians 2:3, and it says, "Don't be selfish.
Mm.
Don't try to impress others. Be humble, thinking of others as better than yourselves." And I thought that was like really important for us as couples. And, whether you're dating or when you're married, like I said, because what causes infidelity, the root of infidelity,
Yeah.
is selfishness.
Yeah.
I'm thinking
About
about
myself.
myself. I'm thinking about
Yeah.
protecting myself.
Yeah.
I'm not thinking about protecting our
Us.
interests.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about protecting my interests.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so at some point, I've got to make the shift from my interests to our interests.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and it's hard to do because,
is.
I know as a male, sometimes you can get caught up in, okay, I need a way to fix it. So you'll start to make deals and borrow and beg and do all these things so that you can go back to your spouse and say, see, I took care of it,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Even though there's like a mountain of stuff
Yeah.
waiting over there that you've created, it's once again, it's selfish because even though we think we're trying to protect the house, what we're really doing is protecting our own
Oh, yeah.
perception, our own
Absolutely.
ego, our own pride.
Absolutely.
Really around that, which once again, it doesn't seem that way at the moment. It seems like we're trying to keep us from, but really, no, this is because if it's our problem, it's our problem.
Yeah.
And we need to get to a place where we can, because the enemy uses that against
Oh, yeah,
us.
absolutely. Every single time.
Oh man, that's a great way to
Yeah.
exploit.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
like, oh yeah, because he gonna want to fix it or she gonna want to fix it. So let's create some deception. Let's create some lies. Let's create some yokes and some ties to some things
Mhm.
that'll hinder them. Let's just create this ball of confusion where confession and saying, hey, this is our problem that I created. How can
Yeah.
we resolve it? And then on the other party saying, yes, instead of the blame game, once again, you allowed some time to go off and be angry.
Oh,
We're-
yeah, absolutely.
We're all emotional,
Yeah.
right? We all, but at some point I have to pull that back in and say, this is my forever person.
Yeah.
Even though they may have quote unquote created the problem, this problem is our problem, right? To solve, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know when I'm going to be the one to create the problem.
That is true.
Right. So I want grace for when I create the problem.
Yeah.
Because I'm not perfect.
Yeah. So if we're thinking about financial infidelity, what do you think are some of the common signs of financial infidelity? Like if not just in me, but in yourself. Because once again, sometimes we get all detective-y, like I'm gonna be a private detective or whatever. But sometimes we need to detect ourselves.
Yeah.
too.
For me, and you're asking the wrong guy. I'm an investigator.
He is
I've
an
been trained as an
investigator.
interrogator, and I look at all kinds of stuff. And so this
Y'all
is probably
have
not
no
for the
idea.
the average
I'm always
individual.
like, here we go.
So a couple things, weasel wording, and what does weasel wording mean? It's just all of a sudden you become a lawyer, right?
Mhm.
Well, what do you mean when you ask that?
Right.
And it's like all of a sudden
Yeah,
now we're
I
getting
like that.
real,
Right.
we're getting real specific.
Right.
So you can answer the specific thing that I'm asking because
Yes.
you're trying to eliminate paths for me to go down.
Yeah.
Right. So I always look at, that's a sign that something else is going on.
That's
right?
true.
Yeah.
Right. Kind of like being evasive.
It is.
It's
yeah.
like, okay, well, like you said, if you ask me a question and now I'm like, well,
What do you mean by time?
right.
What do you mean by money?
Right.
It's like,
Right.
like when people ask you them kind of weird clarifying questions.
That's a sign that something is is going on. And it's so funny because I don't feel like I have weasel conversations, but maybe I do because Andre's always like, that's not the question that I asked you. I'm like, well, I thought I was answering the question. And he's like, no. So I feel like I said, maybe I am a weasel. I don't know.
No, you're not a weasel. No.
But,
Weasels do it intentionally.
Right.
You're just a big picture thinker. So you answer things in paraphrase.
Right.
Right. So that's just your style. That's the other thing too. When it comes to understanding deceptive behavior in people, there's a normal way they behave, and they may just behave weird. It doesn't mean that they're deceptive.
Right.
They twitch every time they talk. That's not a tell, they stick their tongue out every time they say something. Oh, I'm not saying nothing.
Right.
They may
Everybody does have a tail.
Everybody has,
when something is going wrong, though, if you pay enough attention to your spouse, you can see a tail.
You can see a tail, right?
Right.
So once again, evasiveness.
We talked about unexplained purchases. Like you said, one day there's one base,
and now there's four.
And now there's four, and you're like, and you're like, you don't ask, but you're just thinking in your mind, like, where'd that base come from?
Changes in habits and behavior, right? It's like, okay, you used to get up you used to do this all the time, and now all of a sudden you don't do that anymore. And then I'm talking about positive things.
Yeah.
Okay, person didn't go to the gym, now they're going to the gym.
Yeah.
It's more like, okay, now every time I close around, the iPad goes on lock, right? Or right. It's like every time I walk in the room, right? Or every time you're doing something, the phone shut down. And it's like, okay, what's going on there? Or I ask, about the state of the finances, and it becomes very, once again, it becomes very...
Right. I get defensive.
Yeah,
I'm like, well, why are you asking today?
Yeah. Why you need to know that?
Right.
Yeah, defensiveness is a big sign.
Right.
Why
now
you need to know that?
You don't trust me, with the money, or whatever, because that's a real big one.
Yeah, because it's basically that kind of defensive-ness usually indicates the person's disappointed in themselves, too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's not even about you.
Yeah.
Like you said, now I got to take some time to now try to figure out, okay, now what am I going to say?
Yeah.
Because like you said, it's defensiveness too. It's also, like I said, I look at it as like protection.
It is.
That's why it's defense.
Yeah.
Because I got to figure out how to protect myself from some of the mistakes that I've made with the money. That's another way too. Like you said, I like what you said about behavior too, because sometimes people with addictions, obviously, if I'm addicted to something, I'm not going to say that to you.
Right.
If I become addicted to gambling, or drugs, or whatever. I don't do weed and all the other kind of stuff, but now that it's legal, it's a lot of people that's getting addicted. To that. And from what I've heard, it's not cheap. That could put a little dent in your your finances.
From what I understand, weed's not as addictive as like heroin or cocaine or whatever. People can get addicted to anything. It could be alcohol, right? Alcohol is absolutely legal, right? But, I remember back in the 70s, my uncle, who was we used the phrase a winehead back then, right? You start seeing bottles in weird places, right? It's just like,
that's true too.
Why is there a bottle in the toilet? Back in the toilet, or why is there a bottle? There'll always be these bottles tucked. So I think when it comes to financial infidelity, you start to see things like, okay, we used to store all the bills here, and now the bills aren't stored there anymore,
right.
or weird collection notices start showing up, or collection calls start coming in, and it's just like, well, what's going on,
Yeah,
right?
I like that too. Like you said, the collection calls
Yeah,
start coming in. But what happens is, like you said, if you really good at hiding, then the collection call isn't coming to your cell phone. See,
right.
back in the day when we had a
When
landline,
it's coming to the house.
a little
Yeah,
bit harder to hide. But
right.
now I'm like, if I'm doing something, no, but you don't even know if I'm getting a collection call.
Well, or to collect a call and you go take it in the other room, or you hang up, right? And it used to be a sign that was a sign of cheating. Now it's like, no, you're other person just in debt. They don't want you to
Right,
know.
right. Which is cheating. Like I
Yeah,
said,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
the harsh reality.
yeah,
Is that's the word we don't want to use, but
yeah,
it is. You're like cheating.
yeah.
You're cheating yourself and your spouse out of income,
So
out of productivity, and out of stewardship, out of good stewardship.
out of opportunity,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And I think the biggest revelation that you just said is that probably the same behaviors that you see when someone's being a cheating person are the same behaviors that kind of show up. They
Yeah.
manifest in a different way
Hmm.
around financial infidelity.
Absolutely.
So if you see some of those suspicious behaviors, trust your gut. It's time to have a conversation. There's something going on,
Yeah.
right? And it may not always be something malicious. I think we want to put people in an evil bucket really, really quick. And it may be, look, I had a bunch of debts when I got married, or, for a guy, it's like, okay, we just got together, we're dating, we're sort of exploring, and I got several kids, right? And I
Yeah.
didn't want to disclose the fact that I got several kids and several baby mothers, right?
Hmm.
And that's a financial commitment that you're going to have for and so
Oh
I'm
yeah.
I'm trying to make it work. And instead, it's like, okay, if we're going to be together, that's going to be our problem. I
Yeah.
understand they're your kids, but if we tie this thing together, those are going to be our kids,
Yeah.
right? And that's going to be our bill that we have to
Hmm.
pay. So those things have to come forward.
Yeah. It's like moving from the me to the we
Yeah.
concept. And once again, that's that becoming one, which is it takes a while. And like I said, and for some reason, like I said, it's to me, it seems like it's hard in the area of money.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Oh, and society puts us in a place, let's just be real. We're deceptive in a lot of
oh
places
yeah,
when it comes to
absolutely.
our money,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So we're deceptive in our relationships, representing, what resources we have. People are encouraged to be deceptive about their financial ability to the world,
that is
right?
true. That is true.
It's like, dress up for the job you want, fake it till you make it, all of that
Yeah,
kind of
that is
stuff,
true.
right? You have people that invest way, way more in their look than they are in their financial health, right? So
Hmm.
they look like $1 million,
Yeah.
right? But they wouldn't be able to weather any sort of financial storm.
Hmm.
They don't have anything saved,
Right.
for anything that happens. And if they had to retire tomorrow, they'd be, pretty much Social Security, and that's it,
Hmm.
right? And so, once again, I'm not disparaging anybody that may be in those situations, but one way to start to get to the other side of those situations, if that you're in a relationship with somebody, we need to talk about these things and
Right.
get them out on the table
Yeah.
and discuss them with a realistic, pragmatic sense.
Yeah.
You know?
And so that kind of leads us to, like I said, once you detect that kind of behavior, because we only said like a few, like the other one too, I know like sometimes I have is like hidden spending during trips. You know how like you go out and you have a budget
Hmm.
and then the kids start asking for stuff.
Next
And
thing you
then
know, you done run
next
the
thing you
budget
know,
up.
you like all over budget, and like you said, and then once again, like I said, it's that mindset of, okay, we can make it up. So like I said, it's not being malicious,
Hmm.
but once again, it's like, okay, we have overspent.
Hmm.
We definitely went over budget.
Hmm.
And so to your point, like you said, now that we can recognize those things in ourselves, like you said, now we have to be able to talk about it.
Yeah.
And one of the things that you had kind of said earlier was we have to take a step back emotionally,
Yeah.
because when that kind of stuff happens, we are very emotional about
Hmm.
it.
Hmm.
And so before we get ready to have that conversation with the person, even if I'm having the conversation with myself, I have to be able to take the emotion out,
Yeah.
because there's the guilt, there's the shame, there's all of these things that the enemy is saying in my mind, like, okay, you messed up, you did this, and all of that can drag
Hmm.
on you emotionally.
Yeah.
So you have to be able to take the emotion out of it. So like to your point, so you can have a pragmatic conversation about where we're going, where we are and where we want to go.
Yeah. Yeah. And as you described, it's one of these places where we've assigned, and I go back to the first conversation we had about money. Money is math, right?
Yeah.
We have to get back to the place where money is math. And the one benefit I've had in terms of being in business, both in corporate America and for myself, at some point, things run over budget. Things happen that you don't expect. Things, customers don't come in that you expect to come in. All those things happen. But a good business person says, okay, given where we are, how do we adjust and reforecast, right?
Yeah.
We don't look, we can only lament so long about not getting that big contract. We can only lament so long that the integration took 6 more months than we expected.
Yeah.
We had to pay the contractor, the consultant more money. We can only lament about those so long. That's now water under the bridge, right? You can only pass the blame around so long. As a matter of fact, with my employees, I can't just blame them all the time because I'm going to rely on them to get to my next place, right?
I like that because like you said, I can't blame my spouse because I'm relying on you for us to get to the next place.
So at some point, is there a lesson learned? Is there accountability? Absolutely. Right. But there's a difference between accountability and me beating you down. Well, that's another episode. But the next goal should be, okay, what's the other side of this? What do we have to tighten up over here to accommodate for this? Are we able to get more from another place? Are we able to do other things? Can we delay some things? There's tactics and things that you can go through that when you're thinking with a clear head, you can work your way out, right? It may not be comfortable. It may not even be pretty, right?
Yeah.
It may be some folks that we decide, look, when the collector call, you pass them to me, I pass them to you, I answer this time. We can work this thing together, even if it's ugly, right?
That kind of plays into gathering the facts.
Yeah.
Because before we can even come up with how we're going to tackle it, let's talk about the facts. Let's talk about where we are. Let's look at a budget. Let's look at the numbers so we can really see where we are. Because once we gather the facts, because money don't lie.
Money does not lie, but here's people lie, right?
People lie.
And so I'm going to give something away here, right? I told this to your sister last night. So when we're dealing with money has the greatest potential for us to be deceptive when we confess. What do I mean by that?
That is true.
So if we have a problem and it all breaks down, all right, baby, I only lost $1,000. That means I lost about $10,000, right? But I'm unburdening myself by confessing a little bit, right? Or I'm minimizing my offense as much as possible.
Right.
And this is what, as the offender, we have to be sensitive about doing. We want to minimize it, right? Don't blow it up beyond what it is, but don't minimize it either, because we have to deal with it as it is, right?
Right.
So what if I blew 10,000? I blew 10,000, and that's it.
Yeah.
Right. Now on the other side, the other person has to realize that other person is in a place of embarrassment and compromise. And while you get the right to react emotionally, just also have grace and a space for that person to be transparent.
Yeah.
Right. Because the more you lean into them and you giving them the glaring look, the smaller that number they're going to confess to you is going to be.
Right. Right. So that's so what you're saying is, so when we're having this conversation, it's not a conversation about, it's not accusatory.
Right.
It's just us really saying, okay, well, what's going on? Like you said, I noticed, something's, I noticed in the checkbook today, or I don't even think people use checkbooks anymore.
They don't use to.
Oh my
I
God,
noticed I got an alert today that we're negative, right? Or
what's going on with our finances?
I logged into the account today, which I do once every 6 months, and I found that we only had $3.
Right. What happened?
Right. And so there's two parts of that. One, there's asking the question, and then you have some people that feel like just asking the question, you're accusing them of something, right? They immediately get defensive, right?
Exactly.
It's like, I haven't accused you of nothing. I'm just asking a question, right?
Yeah.
Well, I know what you really mean. No, you don't know what I really mean. What would a reasonable person do right now?
But your defensiveness is a clue that you've done something wrong.
That you've done something, right?
Right, exactly. Let me see if there's any more that we could talk about here. So we kind of talked about reviewing our finances together, but also at that point, we do have to be able to set financial boundaries for each other. And to me, it's not just we're setting them for each, collectively. But I think one of the hardest boundaries is when you set them for yourself.
Yeah.
You know, like I said, if I know I have the tendency to overspend,
Hmm.
I gotta work on that.
Yeah.
I have to set a boundary and say, okay, I can only spend, like I said, if I'm addicted to Amazon,
Yeah.
okay, I can only, well, I'm not really addicted to Amazon. So I'll use myself as an example. So when I like video, I like playing my games, right? So I have to, now I could buy,
Yeah, she just buys the level
I
ups.
could just buy the level ups every single day. Okay. I could because I'm addicted to the games. I like the games, you know, and I'm like, oh man, I'm stuck.
Yeah.
But what I had to do was I put myself on a budget.
Right.
So, and that's like, and what I did was I said, okay, that's my one space of fun,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know? So I'm like, I gave myself a fun allowance.
Yeah.
You know, and so I'm like, I work to make sure. So I look through my phone, you know, because you get the alerts when you order stuff on Apple or whatever. I'm like, okay, this is where I am. So I try to give myself a budget of $100. I know that sounds like a lot, but you know, if you like, I got like 10 games on my phone. So that goes to show you how much I like games. But my point in that is that I have to be able to keep that boundary for myself.
And if that's what you enjoy doing, that's, I play golf, I, do other things. I have various hobbies. And if that's your hobby, go right ahead, right?
But even with a hobby, hobbies can be expensive.
They can be.
And so that's why I'm saying that that's where the financial boundaries have to be able to come in place. Because if I don't put a boundary there, then we'll look up and then there'll be like thousands of dollars on our credit card because I didn't went cuckoo
with trying to level up
on Candy Crush. You know?
So I'm level 5,000 now, right? It's like, but that cost us $10,000.
Exactly.
You get to level 5.
And so once again, it's like now I'm feeling bad because I spent $10,000 on a level of a game that's not benefiting us at all. At all. So I have to put myself, I have to have a boundary. That's all I'm saying.
And what's cool though is we're on a shared family account. So of course I get the, hey, Candy Crush juicy offer, come across on my phone. It's like, oh, she leveling up again. It's like, hey, she don't get on me when I buy golf balls. So, hey,
But I have a boundary.
But you have a boundary,
I do.
right? And as long as you manage to that's all we can ask.
Yes.
I know you have some items on your list here, but there's a couple of sort of other financial deceptive or financial infidelity issues that I think we need to discover. I know we're a little bit over time here, but
go ahead.
But one that I am particularly honed in on is sort of that intellectual honesty. And what do I mean by that? When people get together, and this is for the singles, this is cheat code for singles or people that are on the path, right? You can have an individual, you can have one with a dream and you have another one that's more pragmatic, right? Where you have to be, this is where fidelity is, right? One person may be spending way out of their means just to maintain the appearance of that relationship, right? And you have that other person, right, who's like, okay, they're spending, life must be good, right? But we haven't joined forces yet. There's no look behind the scenes, right? And this person is doing things, buying lunches, buying dinners, financing all these things, but you're creating a level of infidelity because you're not giving a realistic picture of what your finances really are, right? And you're also setting a stage for financial expectations that you can't meet or maintain. It's like, hey, you ball and you should be able to do this. I'm going to quit my job and you can take care of us both, right? No, I can't do that. I work this kind of job. I work in this kind of career. Even if I doubled my salary, you wouldn't be able to quit, right? So that's not on the menu for now. Doesn't mean I want to get there later, but that's not on the menu for now. So you can avoid some financial infidelity by being truthful, transparent, and intellectually honest about financial states today.
Yeah. I like that you're saying that because I feel like in the beginning of our marriage, it was hard to be intellectually honest.
Yeah.
Because there's this pressure that you feel to to want to be
Please.
able to please.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and so, like I said, when we got married, like I said, I remember there was a game system that you
Yeah,
wanted.
yeah.
And, you know, and I was like, well, we really couldn't afford it.
Mhm.
Okay. But I was like, I was going to make it happen.
Yeah.
So, you know, like I said, selling my soul, asking my mom for money. I was doing all these things like behind the scenes. Like, what do you say? Like you say, when you see the duck
Yeah.
on top of the water, you don't see how fast his feet are pedaling.
Mhm.
That's kind of like how it was. You know,
Yeah.
I'm pedaling and you don't know the sacrifices that
No,
I'm making.
not
And
at all.
you're not aware of any of those things. You're just like, yay, I got
The
my
system.
game.
Yeah.
You know, so now I'm the one who's now got to figure out like, okay, now how do you know
How do I pick up the pieces?
Right, how do I pick
created
up
all
the-
this
right.
destruction. Now I got to go back and rectify all of this
even though
stuff.
I'm very happy
Yeah.
that you know you got what you wanted, but like
Right.
you said, there's this thing of like you said, now I got to go back and pick up the pieces of this financial thing that I've created.
Yeah.
So that was really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for you folks out there getting together, you got to be intellectually honest about
Yeah.
where you are and where you want to go. Even
Mhm.
be honest about your capability to go somewhere,
Mhm.
right? If you're of a certain income class and you want to raise that, it's okay to say, look, I want to raise that. I'm going to go to school. I'm going to go learn a trade. I'm going to do some things.
Yeah.
I'm going to get better, and maybe I can earn more money someday,
Mhm.
right? But there is not a 30-day plan that if we got together tomorrow, I'm going to make 6 figures plus.
Right.
That's not in the cards.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
Whatever we
Yeah.
build right now is going to be built together until I get to a place where I can do more.
Yeah.
So
And that, like you said, that conversation is so key. Like you said, when you're single and you're trying to get together with
Yeah.
your forever person. Yeah.
well, this was a full conversation
It was.
today, boy. We could probably talk for another hour. I know there's items on the list that we didn't even get
Yeah.
to.
Because
Right?
the last one that we didn't get to was, and this is a cheat code for the singles. It's like you have to know when it's a deal breaker
Yeah.
for you.
Well,
Because
that ties into what we just talked
Yeah.
about. At some point, the deal breaker is the deal breaker,
Right.
right?
It's like, well, that's not going to work
right,
for me.
right.
You know, and you got to know when to walk away.
I can't accommodate that,
Yeah,
right?
I can't accommodate that.
Or unless we can compromise, you know, your expectation is too high, or so, you know, we have to be. But once again, deal breakers only occur when we're intellectually honest.
Yeah. I was going to say too, the deal breaker happens too, like you said, when even in marriage, it's like, well, we can't afford a house right now.
Right.
But if we do these steps, then, you know, maybe in a year's time, we can be able to do it, you know. But like I said, if we do it now, yeah, that could ruin us financially.
But you have no faith.
Right, I know.
You don't
Oh,
say. You
that's
haven't
a
spoke
whole-
over that
yeah,
thing.
we-
You haven't said, "Where did
we
I can?
probably
I
need
can
to do
all
We need
things
to
through Christ who strengthens
we
me."
haven't even touched that part
Yeah,
of the
yeah,
conversation. Oh my
yeah.
God, we could come back and talk about that
And
one
while
because that's real talk
that's
right
real
there.
talk. While all those things
Yeah.
are true, you know, and we're not going to get into using spiritual manipulation to get your way. You know, we all understand what it's like to be connected to people that dream.
Yeah.
You know, and we're going to have some talks about that in the next season about dreamers and what it means to be with somebody that's a dreamer versus someone that's more of a pragmatist. And that type of talk can come from a dreamer
That's
that dreams
true.
big,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And you look up and it's just like, now we in a hole, we messed up, we done bought something we shouldn't bought because the dreamer has dreamed, but the pragmatist has remained quiet.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
No, that's
You know?
good. Yeah.
And so we'll get into that. But I think it was a good episode.
It was, yeah.
Let us know in the comments below how you feel about financial infidelity. Have you been faithful or you got a side piece going on, right? Is your body here with me, but the money's on the other side of town?
Yes.
Right? What are you doing with it? What are you doing with it? Like, share, and subscribe.
Please do.
Click the bell to get notifications. Sister Ann Mills, we love you.
Yes,
we love
we
you.
do. We love you, Alan. Thank you for always watching.
Yeah, keep the comments coming. And until the next time, we say peace. We love you, family.
Love you.